All right, so let's continue with equations with fractions. All right, so this one I have 3x over 8 equals 9 minus x over 14. When I have a fraction set equal to another fraction, I must cross multiply. All right, so you guys might remember this from last year. You guys did proportions, where you had like something like x over 10 equals 5 over 50. Something like that, right? And you had to figure out what that x was. And you did this thing, some people call it like a butterfly, some people call it cross multiplying, which is what you're really doing. So you would take that x and times it by 50. And that x times 50 gives you 50x, right? And then you have to cross multiply the other two. 10 times 5 is 50. And then you would solve it like a regular equation. You would do divide by 50 to get x by itself, and 50 divided by 50 on the other side to keep your equation equal. So 50 divided by 50 gives us 1, so we have 1x, and then 50 divided by 50 equals 1, so that would equal 1. So when you have an equation like this, where there's x's on both sides, things like that, you can solve it the exact same way. You can cross multiply. So you would take these two and cross multiply. 14 times 3x, right? And then 14 times 3 gives you 42, and then x stays with it. And then we have to cross multiply the other way. So that'd be 8 times 9 minus x. Well, 8 times 9 gives me 72. 8 times negative x gives me negative 8x. So now I can solve it like a regular equation. So I see I have x's on both sides, so I have to get those to one side. So I have to move over my variables all to one side. So I'm going to do plus 8x to move it over to the left side. 42x plus 8x gives me 50x. And on the right side, I'm left with 72. And then if I wanted to get x by itself, I have to divide by 50 to get x by itself, right? And I have to do the same thing to the other side to keep my equation equal. So it'd be 72 over 50. If I divided this, I would get a fraction or a decimal. But in algebra, we try to keep it as fractions in our answers, just in simplest form. So what can I simplify this by or reduce it by? Well, I see they're both even, so I can divide it by 2. 72 divided by 2 is 36, and 50 divided by 2 is 25. So my final answer is 36 over 25. I can't simplify it anymore because there's no number that goes into 36 and 25 except for 1. So that is my final answer. All right, so let's try another one. Let's say I had 3 plus 2x over 8 equals 1 minus x over 5. All right, so I'm going to cross multiply. 8 times 1 minus x. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times negative x is negative 8x. Perfect. All right, so now I'm going to cross multiply the other side. 5 times 3 plus 2x. Well, I'll use distributive property. 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times 2x gives me 10x. And I'm done with that. Now I can solve it like a regular equation. So I see right away I have variables on both sides. So I have to move over one of my variables. So I'm going to move this 8. So I see it's a minus 8x, so I'm going to do a plus 8x to both sides. That gets rid of it on the left side and leaves me with 8 on the left. And on the right side, I'm with 15. And I can combine these two because they're like terms. So 10x plus 8x gives me 18x. Now it's a two-step, right? So I have all my variables to one side. I want to get rid of that constant. That's a positive 15, so I'm going to do a negative 15 to both sides. 8 minus 15 is negative 7. And on the right side, I'm just left with 18x because I got rid of that 15 by doing the inverse operation. So now I want to get x by itself. This is 18 times x, so I'm going to do divided by 18 to leave me with 1x. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. It's negative 7 divided by 18. Well, if I did negative 7 divided by 18, that's going to give me a decimal. So I'm just going to see if I can simplify it, which I can't because there's no number that can divide evenly into both of these. So my final answer just stays negative 7 over 18. That's my final answer. Right? So if you ever have an equation where there's a fraction set equal to another fraction, you can cross multiply to get your answer.